Hey, good morning. Jay Porter here. Just want to welcome everybody to something a little different this morning. Not comedy, but I've always been a lover of history and having a little opportunity at my church to provide a little foundation for the book of Romans dealing with the history of the Roman Empire at first century CE. So everybody's welcome to come. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's interesting, and I hope, despite everything, there may be some humor involved. Thank you, and you all have a blessed day. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Vallejo, California, First Baptist Church. I wanted everybody to just have a good time this morning, doing something a little different here. Going to give a little background on the book of Romans, the Roman Empire in the first century CE. That means Christian era. A lot of people, there's 2,000 years worth of history written on the Roman Empire, a lot of it written right at the Roman Empire. So it's a challenge to compress that into a half-hour lesson. So bear with me. I hope you all enjoy it. And hope you learn a little something, and hopefully I don't... hopefully I can come across halfway like I know what I'm talking about, and that's a joke. So, bear with me a second here. So, first of all, when was the book of Romans written? Well, that was written about, they say, in 57 to 58 CE, or as I was raised, I called it AD. It was a letter written from Ephesus as instructions to the Christians in Rome. It was instructions, and is instructional. That's a great word. Instructional in nature. So, what was the politics of Rome? Well, at that time, it was the hub of the Roman Empire. It was the center of politics, of commerce. It was where the Roman emperors lived, along with the Senate. It's got a lot of similarities to Washington, our modern Washington, D.C. 2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire basically went completely around the Mediterranean all the way up into England, with all the way over to Turkey. Some people say at that time out of every 4 people on earth lived under Roman law. So this was a time. This was that particular time. Last week, our pastor talked about laying a foundation. Well, that's what I'm trying to do today, is lay a foundation for the study over the next few weeks. So, this was like putting together a term paper, going through a bunch of different sources. The Roman Empire was governed by an autocracy. That's a good word for dictatorship. There was a civil war fought in Rome in the first century BC before Christ. There was fight with what was called the old government, the Roman Republic, where they had somewhat of a representative government like we do today, a representative democracy. Julius Caesar became a dictator. There were people who did not like that. He was literally assassinated by 57 members of the Roman Senate. And there was large battles after that as to which way the government would go. Eventually, people got tired of fighting with each other, and they established what was known as the Roman Empire, which was a dictatorship. Now, here's a great paragraph. The Roman Empire was characterized by imperial administration and had a hierarchy of magistrates and provincial governors. After Augustus, who was one of the Caesars, most of the Roman empires came up to the military and used their power and army to secure the rule. In other words, rule from the top. The Pax Romana, which is not a cheese selection at your local store, that's a joke, was a period of peace and stability across the Roman Empire and it went from 27 AD to about 200. The aim of this particular time was to guarantee law, order, and security within the empire, even if it meant separating it from the rest of the world and defending or even expanding its borders through military intervention and conquest. So they wanted peace and stability through strength. No rabble-rousing at home. You cause us trouble on your borders, we're going to come and take your property. The name Caesar, or the rulers, was conferred on everybody from Caesar on, and it was somewhat where the use of the word Pharaoh from Egypt. So it's found 26 times in the New Testament. So when we're talking Caesar, there were various Caesars, not salads. That was a joke. Let's talk about religion. Unlike most religions of today, Roman religion was not based on any moral character. It was based on you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. I'll build an altar in my house. I'll do the proper things. You give me some luck and good fortune in life. The Roman religion was based upon, they took the Greek gods, they went to Egypt, they took the Egyptian gods. They really didn't care. If you had your God, they left you alone. One interesting thing, the Caesar Augustus himself appointed himself as the chief priest or Pontiff Maximus, and used the appearance of Halley's Comet to claim that he himself was the son of a god. So therefore, the cult of Caesar worship was established throughout the Roman Empire, which meant that if you had a city that had a temple dedicated to Caesar, you were a top dog city. You had access to lots of benefits from the Roman Empire, lots of money, lots of benefits, and this became very intermingled with society. The Roman Empire had a lot of different stratas of people. They did have a small middle class. They had an upper class, which basically was ran the government. They had a lot of slaves. We're talking 2,200 years ago. This was the world as it was. Life was brutal, short, and hard for most people. The one exception to what I call multi-god or polytheistic systems were the Jews in the Roman Empire, and they had actually lived, and they had lived in Rome, or the city of Rome, since the 2nd century BC. Julius Caesar and Augustus supported laws that allowed Jews protection to worship as they chose. Synagogues were classified as colleges and were able to get around Roman laws banning secret societies, and the temples were allowed to collect the yearly tax paid by all Jewish men for temple maintenance. The population of the Roman Empire in the 1st century was approximately 45 million people, of which 7 million were Jewish. That's an important statistic. Herod Agrippa, and there was an email that was sent out with attachments here, and I want to apologize to the people online. I wasn't able to share any of the attachments for the meeting this morning. He was the king of Judea from AD 41 to 44. He was the last ruler with the royal title over Judea, and the father of Herod Agrippa II, the last from the Herodian dynasty, the grandson of Herod the Great from the Christmas story. He is named in the Acts of the Apostles 12:1 after the assassination of Caligula, and we're not going to go into any detail about the Emperor Caligula this morning. Agrippa. Now, here's one thing. Herod Agrippa was involved in helping the Emperor Claudius ascent to the throne. Claudius survived the crazy times of the emperor before him by pretending to be that he was a little nuts, a little simple. And out of that, he was a very calculating political person, and he was put into the power of Caesar. There was no election for Caesar. It was when someone died, when someone took power, whatever deals could be swung for someone to take over, kind of like the old Soviet Union. Claudius Caesar is an important person here when we want to talk about the first century. He was the fifth Roman emperor and ascended to the throne in the year 41 AD. And he ruled for 13 years. Now, this is all before the time of the book of Romans. And his reign was brought to a rather spectacular conclusion when one of his wives, Agrippina, poisoned him in order that her stepson, Nero, could take the throne. Now, this is a very interesting statement. We know from the ancient Roman historian Cassius Dio that the Emperor Claudius ordered the Jews not to hold meetings in Rome around 41 AD. Now, many people believe that this failed to stifle that activity, but what that did mean is, you can kind of construe that a lot of Jewish people left Rome so that they could worship. This freed up the area of Rome for early Christians who worshipped in their home. Now, here's a very interesting statement. The historian Suetonius wrote, since the Jews constantly made disturbances at the instigation of Chestirus, Claudius expelled them from Rome. Chestirus doesn't mean followers of Christ, it means followers of the crucified one. So there were disturbances going on. Some historians think it was the Jews in general. That's a small minority, but most of them think it was conflicts between the Jews and the Christians in the city of Rome. But what was going on in 41 AD in Rome? A famine. And there wasn't enough food in Rome. So guess what? Excluding foreigners from your city who are causing problems, it's a smart political move. In 49 AD, the Emperor Claudius expelled all the Jews from Rome, and this was that was the 49 AD thing. Sorry. I want to go back here and say in 41 AD, there was a famine, and that's when they told the Jews that they couldn't worship in the synagogues. In 49 AD, there was a second famine, and there was also the disturbance between the Christians and the Jews. Now, Claudius, as we all know, died. What happened here? This allowed a 17-year-old young man by the name of Nero, who we best know for being kind of crazy, and the rumor has it that he played a fiddle as Rome burned. He became a brutal psychopath, blaming Christians for the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD and sending them to death in the Colosseum. Both Paul and Peter were executed by Rome shortly after the outbreak of the Jewish Romano War in 66 AD. Now in 70 AD, the temple was destroyed in Jerusalem. What you essentially had was a emperor who was not friendly to 7 million people living in the borders of Rome who were not worshiping him as a god. And that's when the Jewish relationship with the Roman Empire soured and went sideways. So what do we have here? We have a period in Rome, and Nero was the emperor at the time that the book of Romans was written. Everything else laid the groundwork to it. So, like I say, I apologize. I wish the screen had been up here so I could have. When I'm trying to go back and forth between some things. You have any question? Anybody have any questions?
I get from the book of Romans, it teach you the truth about Christianity.
Well, that's a lot of it, and a lot of it is giving instructions back to the people in Rome how the Jewish Christians and the people who were just Gentile Christians, how they were to get along with each other.